Hello, this is D Squid, and today I am teaching you how to play Mana Dwellers. Alrighty, here we go. Here's the overview. First off, I will be touching on card layouts, what all the parts of the cards mean for your Dweller cards, your Elixirs, your artifacts, and your location cards. I will be explaining what the different parts of the cards mean. Okay, second thing I will be touching on is building your deck. What's required in a deck in order to play the game. There is specific numbers of each card you're supposed to have, and I will be going over that. The basic rules for the game, that's just like the basic concept of the game. I won't be getting into the rules until the fifth thing, playing the game. But the fourth thing is setting up a game. This is important. There's a certain format you will have to have your cards in. It's pretty simple, but it might take a little bit to get used to. And fifth, playing the game. That's more in-depth rules of what you will be doing when you're playing. Okay, card layout for Dwellers. I have made a little example Dweller here. Smiley boy. First thing I will be touching on is the top part of the card, which I like to call the information section of the card, the details. Okay, in the left-hand corner, right here, the red dot is, you will see a number 1 through 3 on a Dweller card. 1 means a common Dweller, a 2 means an uncommon Dweller, and a 3 means a legendary Dweller. Beside the red dot that tells you what type of Dweller you have, you will see the Dweller name. This is just the name of your Dweller, basically like what to call them. And under that, you get a nice little picture of your Dweller. Smiley boy is just here, but yeah, that's your image, where your image will be. Okay, next. This is the ability box. The ability box on your card is the bottom left part of the card. Where it says ability right here, you will have the name of your ability. And under that in the box, you will have the cost of mana that you will have to use up when you use the ability. And under that, this X right here will have a number in it, and that's how much health using the ability will take away from your opponent. On the bottom right hand side of the card, this is the stats part of the card. Basically what your Dweller stats are. Where it says Y, that will be the number of mana your character or your Dweller has. And underneath that, it will be the total amount of health your Dweller has. Okay, next up, here's the card layout for Elixirs, artifacts, and locations. They are basically all the same in terms of layout. Up in the top left-hand corner, you will see an X. This is how you tell if it's an elixir, an artifact, or a location. They all have that same red X in the corner. And it will have, to the right of that, you will have the name of the elixir, the artifact, or the location. Under that, you will have a picture of the elixir, artifact, or location. And down at the bottom, you will have a description of the effects that the elixir, artifact, or location has. Okay, elixirs are basically like a way to multiply or add health or mana to a character. It will usually be either or. Have like a health elixir or a mana elixir. On an artifact card, artifacts are basically like effects, and you can use them on one Dweller, and only one. This will only apply to the player's Dweller that they put out. When they put out the artifact card, it will only apply to their Dweller. On the other hand, locations. Location effects, when you put out a location card, the effects of that card affect both players in the game. So you have to be careful when setting out location cards. I'll touch on that later. Okay, building your game deck. This is the part where I said you have to have certain cards in your deck. Each deck may contain only 3 common dwellers, basically dwellers that have a 1 in the top left corner, 2 uncommon dwellers, the dwellers that have a 2 in the top left corner in the circle, and you may have 1 legendary dweller. Those cards will have a 3 in the top left hand corner. Additionally, each player will be allowed to have 1 artifact, 1 elixir, and 1 location. But the thing is, 1 location may only be used when only 1 player can use 1 location in a game. Like, both players can't use their location. So it's basically whoever puts out a location first gets to use the location for the entire game. Okay, here's the basic rules for the game, basically like the run over of what is Mana Dwellers. Mana Dwellers is a TCG based around the combat of magical creatures called Dwellers. Each Dweller has 1 combat ability they can use by spending their mana to decrease an opponent's health. If a Dweller loses all of its health from an opponent attack, or runs out of mana from making attacks on an enemy, they must be put to the side in the card owner's graveyard pile and be considered dead for the rest of the game. Please note that elixir cards can only be used to generate health or mana on living dwellers. You can't bring back your dead dwellers. Once they're dead, they're dead. Sorry. Here's how you set up a game. This is the format you set up your game in on the right. But Mana Dwellers is a 2-player game. The players should be sitting across from each other. Both players should make 3 piles on their sides of the playing surface. It can be a floor or a table, just any flat surface, obviously. The first pile must contain all dwellers from their deck, which I have put in green. So this should be the leftmost pile. The second pile must contain all artifacts, elixirs, and location cards from a player's deck. So this should have 3 cards in it, in this pile. 1 of each, if you have one. The third pile, this gray pile over here, will be the graveyard pile. This is the place where you put your dwellers after they die. This pile should obviously start off empty, because all your dwellers when you start the game will be living. Both players should set their starting dweller, in the red, and an artifact / elixir / location, if wanted, out in front of their 3 piles. Yeah. So when you put out your card, this is the only time you can, when you put out a dweller, this is the only time you can put out an artifact, an elixir, or a location. You may only put out 1 at a time, so you can't put out elixir and a location, or an elixir and an artifact when you put out your dweller. You can only pick 1 of those 3 if wanted. And once both players have their cards in this formation, the game can begin. Playing the game. Here's how you play it. Players' starting dwellers can be from any class of their choosing, common, uncommon, or legendary, and they can choose which exact card to put out at the beginning of a turn. Dwellers may not be swapped out once put into play. You may not retreat a card during gameplay. Once you put them out, they are out there to battle. They can't flee. They're just there to fight. When both players have their starting dweller out, both players must put out their starting dweller first. When they first set out their dwellers, both players flip a coin simultaneously. The player who gets a heads first gets to attack first. If both players flip a heads on the first coin tossed, both players must flip again until only one player has heads and the other has tails. The first attacker player, the one who got heads, must put their location card out at this time, or an artifact or an elixir, but please keep in mind that the effect on a location card affects both players' dwellers for the rest of the game. Once a location card is set out by a player, the other player may not set out their location card for the rest of the game. Using a location during combat is first come, first serve, meaning one player will not get to use their location card for the entire game. That's why I recommend putting out location cards at the beginning of the game. Okay. Once they put out their first dweller and their other card, then they may use their starting dweller's attack ability. Once an ability has been used once, the next player gets a turn to use their dweller's ability. And you have to keep track of how much mana your dweller loses when you attack and how much damage your dweller takes after an opponent's attack. I recommend writing this down on a piece of paper. Keeps it neater, keeps your brain from getting all fuzzy trying to do math during a match. When a dweller dies by losing all of its mana or health, the player must put their card on their graveyard pile and put out another dweller of their choosing and an artifact or elixir if they wish to use one to buff their dweller while it is alive, assuming that the location card has already been put out. The first player who runs out of living dwellers is the loser. The other player is victorious. Thank you for watching this video. I am currently in the process of designing more new cards. Please subscribe if you'd like to keep up with mana dwellers. Thank you for watching.